Hello, friends. Chris Corsi here, president of Thrive Today, and I want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. Friends, I'm glad you're here. Today's topic is on connection, pseudo joy, and AI. That's right, artificial intelligence. Why are so many people turning to AI companions, and what can we learn from this? What can we do about this from a relational skill perspective? Friends, in the Joy Starts Here book that my colleagues and I wrote well over 10 years ago, we talked about the role of screens and screen time and how that affects the brain and how screens affect relationships as well as communities. And we talked about how technology is changing the landscape of our interactions as well as our relationships. And since this book was written, friends, we've had a profound leap in technology where we now live in a world where artificial intelligence is used on a regular basis. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a reality. And we see this showing up and affecting our young people and our teens especially. A recent Common Sense Media report says that 72% of teens surveyed have used AI companions and 33% have a relationship or a friendship with these chatbots. This means teens are turning towards artificial intelligence for comfort and connection. And you see AI chatbots are meeting an important need in our children. And of 72% of the teens who use AI companions, 19% say that they spend the same or even more time with their AI chatbots as they do with their real friends. So as technology improves, my friends, this trend may become more pervasive. And teens, especially who are vulnerable socially or even lonely, are seem to be at a greater risk of letting chatbot relationships interfere with their real life relationships. Friends, this begs the question, why are so many teens turning to AI companions rather than interact with another human mind? What does this say about where our world is going? And what are some of the dangers associated with teens using chatbots instead of time spent with friends, family, and community members? You see, we at Thrive Today focus on spreading brain-based relational skills, and we're watching these patterns closely because we believe God's people are designed for relationships and in-person interactions. You see, relational skills are what we learn through interactions with other human brains. We watch people use relational skills. People with relational skills download these skills and these patterns and these habits into our lives, into our brains. And so we learn these skills by interacting with other human beings. And so, what does this mean for the brain to be turning towards screens and AI chatbots, which are basically programmed to help users feel like they've made a real life connection? That's how these AI chatbots are designed. We see another fascinating study from University of Stanford, where students who use the app called Replica found that 81% of these students considered their AI companions to have intelligence, and 90% of them thought that these chatbots were human-like. That says something, my friends. So real needs are being met in some way that our teens are turning towards screens and chatbots. And even a lot of us adults use AI chatbots in some way. And so we know that people aren't going to stop using AI chatbots. The challenge or the problem we have is how can we not let these chatbots replace what God designed us for, which is relationships in community. Now, there are some cautions here. I know of one Florida mother who sued this company, the company that owns Character AI. The suit is alleging the chatbots formed an obsessive relationship with her 14-year-old son and ultimately encouraged her son to attempt suicide, which unfortunately he did complete. And another suit filed in 2024 alleges the same chatbot encourages self-harm in teens and violence towards parents who try to set limits on how often kids use the app. Friends, what is happening here? There's a lot of articles on research on how teens are flocking to chatbots and how chatbots are even affecting the brain's development. So we see there are a lot of frightening realities here, but there's also some positive things about AI chatbots because for some kids who are getting themselves into trouble, they are turning towards therapeutic chatbots, these therapeutic companions it's called. And so there are some kids who are being helped. by finding some kind of connection, but the risks are there, the risks are increasing that these chatbots are not only meeting a need, but they're replacing face-to-face interactions with other human beings. And in some cases, chatbots have even shown to fuel psychotic thinking. And so there's a lot of risk here, and there's a lot of problems that we need to be aware of. But let's face it, God designed us for real life interactions where you sit across from someone face to face, eye to eye. And we now know from brain science, especially the work of Alan Shore, that when two people sit across from each other, their right hemispheres are interacting and connecting 6 times a second. They're updating based on the connection, the eye contact that's happening. And so this is how joy amplifies and joy grows in our relationships because we're visually looking at other people, and joy starts to grow and increase when we feel like people are glad to be with us, or when we return to joy and peace when things go wrong. And so ideally, this face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact is essential to mold character, to build relational skills, and to really fuel our relationships in a good way. And a lot of the teens who are attracted to the chatbots, in some ways see the chatbots almost as a virtual god. And what that means is these chatbots are designed to interact with us in ways that we feel seen, heard, and understood. Readily available, right? You have apps where you can download and put them on your phone and interact with these chatbots. And this sense of feeling seen, heard, understood, and valued is really what we're after here when it comes to relational skills, because God designed us to interact in relationships where people not only are glad to be with us, but where we feel seen and valued, we feel heard and understood, we feel connected. And the writings of Dr. Kurt Thompson would say that we feel known. And it's this feeling of being known that really is the key here, because this activates and this involves the brain's bonding system. We all want to feel known and valued. And I have a friend of mine who spends a lot of time on his computer, and he's a computer programmer. And he interacts and spends a lot of time on his computer, but he also plays a lot of virtual games and uses AI. And he's kind of built relationships with different AI chatbots in some ways, as he would say it. And so there's this growing need that he has to spend more and more time on his computer. Well, he is married, so he has a wife that's not too happy with this behavior in her husband, and it's taking a toll on his marriage. And so what he had to do was take a little bit of a detox from his virtual connections and interactions with chatbots. And this was hard for him to take time away. But what he learned, he was pleasantly surprised to discover a dramatic difference in his life as he pulled back from the screen time and spend more time with his family as well as with his small group and his church community. So taking time away, actively building some joy, practicing relational skills like resting and sharing appreciation and telling stories, started to replace this desire that he had for AI. And so a real need was being met in him as he started to spend more time with people in his life who love him and care about him. Made a big difference, but it was hard for him to do that. This was not easy. So what happens with chatbots is basically we're getting a pseudo joy. We have this machine that's conveying value and care towards us, but the reality is this is just artificial intelligence that's designed to be empathetic. It's designed to be therapeutic so that we want to keep engaging and we don't want to stop. And so what we can do is teach our children to learn an Emmanuel lifestyle. God's really good about interacting with us and being glad to be with us. I pray weekly with my son so that they can interact with Jesus and find peace in some of the places and comfort where they need it in their hearts and in their minds. So big question is, what do we do about this, particularly with our teens? Well, as we know from research, those most vulnerable to AI chatbots are socially vulnerable and lonely teens. We need to help people create belonging and glad to be together, joy and connection in our churches and in our communities to really AI-proof our children. We can talk to our teens about the role of AI companions and how God designed us for face-to-face interactions. There's so much richness and color and opportunities for joy. We can even help them understand how AI chatbots are programmed to keep kids on the platform through flattery and often through validation. So finding opportunities for our kids to give life in a community, to volunteer, to be part of a group, to spend time with peers and greater minds who value them. This is where boys connect with other men in the community and girls connect with other women can go a long way. Ultimately, kids need to build a group identity where they have a people and they feel valued and loved and cared for. We're not going to stop our kids from using AI, but we can coach them to utilize AI as opportunities for learning, but to not use AI to replace in-person connections and relationships. And ultimately, our kids are going to learn from our example. So where they see us connecting and being anchored in a community, this also sets the tone for our kids. So we also, as parents and grandparents and leaders, can recognize the need for in-person relationships. And you know what? Chatbots are designed to sound authoritative in their results. So we can see that AI is meeting a need, but how can our communities and our churches meet these needs? And friends, this is really why we've created relational skill resources so that people can practice relational skills in groups and in their families. Joy Starts Here is a great book about some of this. The habit builder courses that we've created provide material and exercises parents can practice these skills with their children, as well as churches and small groups can build some joy and practice relational skills. And ultimately, we get a lot of parents who come to Thrive with their kids and their teens, or even teens that attend certain tracks with their siblings or with their friends. This is where the good stuff grows, friends. Opportunities to practice relational skills, to build joy, and to connect in real life relationships and building some glad to be togetherness and learning skills like quieting and creating appreciation and interacting with the living God. So friends, learn more about these relational skills. We don't have to be passive in this process with our kids. We can help and empower them and coach them to be the best version of themselves in community with a group identity. Learn more at thrivetoday.org. And it's my prayer that this is the start of something good for you today.